Great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Land Use and Ethics Subcommittee. We have 3 bills on the agenda this morning, and we will get started. So we're going to start with House Bill 67. This is the 495 and 270 public P3 partnership, P3 agreement bill that has to do with the promises that have been made. This is a bill that we passed last year, favorable. There are some amendments from the sponsor. One is to alter toll revenue required to be transferred to a transit fund from 10% to an amount that's agreed upon. The second amendment is to alter the requirements for the bicycle and pedestrian lanes on the American Legion Bridge. The third amendment alters the limitations on state funding for the project. The fourth amendment applies the prohibition on submitting agreements to the board until EIS approval. That applies instead of to the entire thing to the section P3 agreements, because this P3 is being done in sections and phases. The next amendment requires bike ped improvements to remove barriers and provide connectivity in specific areas of Montgomery and Prince George's counties. The next amendment requires collaboration with local stakeholders regarding transit. The seventh amendment requires a commitment to work collaboratively to avoid or mitigate certain impacts or provide specific benefits. And the final amendment prohibits a contract award unless the bidder agrees to a project labor agreement that demonstrates union and local involvement. So first, I'd like to move the amendments, and then after that, I'm happy to have discussion on the bill. I'd like to move.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the amendments, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Jerry? Okay, Delegate Clark's opposed to the amendments. Great.
And Bill,
Yes. Sorry, I didn't see your hand raised.
That
Sorry.
was
I can't
Wyville
see-
as well.
Okay, Wyville as well is opposed to the amendments. I can't see because I'm not the host, I can't see the little caricatures. So
Oh, all right.
actually raise your hand. Okay, on the bill, Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. Is it in your opinion, I know that there's been some amendments and I think probably some dissension on this point, but is in your opinion that this bill kills the current project for the Beltway and 270?
No. So I think, in fact, sort of the entire premise of the bill is that it doesn't kill the project and that the project is going to move forward. But that over the years, of course, first Secretary Ron and now Secretary Slater and Governor Hogan have made some commitments to the communities this highway will run through, as well as commitments to unions, commitments to communities, commitments to businesses, and commitments to us, the General Assembly. And so because this is such a long-term project, it's just important that those commitments be codified. I think it's a way of getting some assurance for all of us so that we all understand what this project will look like, because of course it's going to continue well after Governor Hogan leaves office. And so there's just no way to ensure that commitments that were made from one administration to the next are upheld. So I think that this will certainly not kill the project, but it will ensure that commitments that have been made are carried through. Thank you for that question. Delegate Wyville.
Thank you. So I understand the original bill, he basically codified the promises made by MDOT, but is that also the case with the amendments that were just adopted?
Yes, there are additional amendments, or in some regards, they're clarifying amendments. So at some point there was, a discussion about, I think in the original bill, there was confusion of the final award with a pre-development agreement. But now we have an amendment that addresses that issue by making it clear that only section agreements can't be submitted until after the FEIS is done. There was also some outdated language on the transit commitments that MDOT had agreed to. So this amendment updated the language on cooperating with the local counties rather than just sticking to a 10% net revenue agreement. So the amendments sort of helped to clarify, I think, some of the promises to make sure that they are more in line with exactly what's been stated.
All right. So have they been sent to us, all of them? Because they're not in the floor system. The amendments.
Yes, yesterday we sent the reprint to everybody.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. Delegate Clark.
Just a quick question. So, I mean, basically what we're doing with this bill is codifying and putting in regulations, verbal commitments that have been made on a transportation project. Are we setting a precedent here where every major transportation project, whether it's P3 or just a regular project, that any verbal commitments to the community as to how something's going to be done would be brought as a bill to tie that in? I mean, because we've had numerous promises that the Thomas Johnson Bridge was going to be built, and them promises have been overlooked and not held up by numerous administrations. So should I the next week or next year put in a bill tying their promises to get building that bridge? I mean, I think
it's a fair question, and I would say that you could. Passed legislation creating, passing the Harry Nice Bridge, requiring that it be built, and certainly I think, every bill sets a precedent in some way. That's what a bill does, is it, creates new law. This project, I think, though, is unlike many projects other than perhaps the Purple Line, in that it is not a project that the state will have complete control over as it is done, because it's a P3. So a private entity is going to come in and be working on it and be running it and be, overseeing the tolls. And so this project, this transportation project, in some ways, this is our only opportunity to ensure that as these phase agreements or section agreements are agreed to by the Board of Public Works, that there are some safeguards for taxpayer dollars going, throughout the long term, especially because this project is so huge and it's going to take so many years to complete. So I think that, this project is just much larger than almost any other project.
And I would agree with that, but I do wonder if by doing this and tying it to certain things, if it's a wise thing to do, because I mean, as you move forward in nothing becomes clear until you start to actually build something. If you had a swing in the community sentiment as to where something should be or how something should be built, would you have the ability to go back and change it? If the promise is we're going to build this ramp here, but it needs to be moved 25 yards up the road for safety and the good of the citizenship, but it's going to cost a whole lot more money. And the administration says, well, the citizens want to move up here, but we promised it down here. Where are we at? I mean, I just think it's the same thing with eliminating lanes on 270. Be careful what you wish for. And, I just think that somewhere down the line, this is going to come back and bite both sides of this issue in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you for that. And I think, the promises in it certainly are not specific enough to require, where certain lanes are where certain off ramps are going. A lot of it's about community collaboration. But I definitely hear you. Thank you, Delegate Clark and Delegate Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to bring up a point. Most of you know I've been in land development and design and construction a lot longer than some of our members here have been born, have been alive. But this P3 project is a little bit different than most projects that take place, including the bridge that we're discussing. This project does three things simultaneously, which is not the norm. It does design, it does permitting, and does construction, all at the same time. And this is totally unique to anything that we've done in the state. And I think that us having specific guidelines make sure that the parameters are met in terms of what was supposed to have been done. And I just wanted to bring that to our attention. This is not like, and I want to use Delegate Clark's example. I'll use Delegate Clark's example. When you build a bridge in typical scenarios, you design it, you get a permit, then you start constructing it. This particular project does all three things simultaneously, all at the same time, all together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No, it's a great point. And then they're going to run the tolls too. So it'll be operation, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Delegate Holmes. Any other discussion on the bill? We have a motion on the bill?
So moved.
Approval. Second.
All those in favor of the favorable motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Delegate Clark and Delegate Weibel. Thank you. Okay. The next bill is HB 980. This is a local bill that we heard on Tuesday. It seems like a lot longer ago than that. It's been a sort of a long, fast week somehow. This bill, let's see. So this bill as amended, HB 980, alters the definition of application relating to applications for land use decisions in Prince George's County to exclude participation in adopting and approving a county-wide zoning map amendment that's recommended by the planning board and approved by the district council, where the intent is to implement an approved general plan by repealing and replacing all zoning categories. There's one amendment from the Prince George's delegation to add an 18-month sunset to this law. So I'd like to first move the amendment favorable.
Move the amendment, Madam Chair. Move
Second.
both amendments, Madam Chair.
Both amendments, yep. All those in favor?
Aye. Yeah, okay.
Thanks. Okay. Any opposed to the amendment? Okay.
Move the bill as amended, Madam Chair.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Question.
Sorry, was there a question? Yep, Delegate.
Yeah, question. Is this the bill that relieves them of ethical complications?
This is the bill that's, I guess that's one way to put it. It has to do with donations. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the bill that'll take out ethics complications, and we're going to take it out, and then it'll sunset and it'll go back to the way it was before.
Yes.
Isn't that an awful convenient way to get around an ethical situation? I mean, is that what we're supposed to be doing as legislators, legislating around ethics? I mean, did it say?
Yeah, Delegate Holmes looks ready to speak.
Yeah, I mean, Delegate Holmes.
Go ahead, Delegate Holmes.
I mean, if you took.
Go ahead, Delegate. Thank you,
Yeah.
Delegate Clark. Delegate Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the primary crux of this legislation is to get the zoning maps amended. That's the primary reason that this bill is here. Now, and without this bill, we cannot get our zoning maps finished. And that's the whole point of the bill. I know that there's been a lot of additional discussion, but the primary point of this bill is to get the zoning put together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep. Thank you, Delegate Holmes. Delegate Traza.
Can I just get clarification that do they still have to fill out the affidavits, or are they relieved of the affidavits, or they're just relieved of the like they can still sit on the countywide zoning?
Patrick, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, you can give me a quick second.
Sure.
I believe that they have to do affidavits on applications, so I think they probably would be relieved of that.
That makes sense.
I
All
mean,
of their disclosure.
we're changing the definition of an application.
What an
Look at
application
Delegate
is.
Holmes.
Right. So they wouldn't have to.
If
do an
you wanna-
affidavit.
If you want to get some clarification, if you can give me a quick second.
Sure.
Like-
I would clarify that they will still have to disclose all of their donations like any other elected official will. Delegate Weigel?
Yeah, and I understand the dilemma you all are in, and Georges. I just don't feel comfortable with this bill. Is there another way to do this? Like, just have I assume you have a planning commission as well, Marvin. Is there a way that the planning commission can approve I mean, I've been through a comprehensive rezoning when I was a county commissioner, and honestly, there's games that can be played with these maps as far as upzoning and everything else. So I'd
like to ask Adrian Gardner, who's joining us today from the Maryland National Capital Planning and Parks Commission. I think I was close there.
That was
to talk a little bit about this process. I mean, this is a really important process for a local government to be able to rezone. The Baltimore City went through this just a couple of years ago. It's a huge deal, and they've put in years of work already in Prince George's County. This is a local bill that was voted 18-0 out of delegation, I will remind folks. But Adrian, if you could talk a little bit about this process, that would be great.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I'm Adrian Gardner. I'm the actual general counsel for the Park and Planning Commission. And so to Delegate Weivel's point, I wanted to sort of make a couple of quick points. The Planning Commission has acted on the zoning map amendment. Under the current code, that's exactly what we do. And in this scenario, it is very unique. And I kind of wanted to say that if you look at the line in the bill includes a list of things where that are defined as applications, special exceptions, departures from design standards. All of those things make perfect sense to consider as an application. I actually teach this at Georgetown Law School. This is not one of the situations where it ever should be considered an application, because it's the difference between retail and wholesale. What's going on in Prince George's County is a lot of work has transpired to create a new general plan and now a new zoning ordinance that takes the number of zones and almost cuts it in half, because we're trying to simplify it. As most zoning ordinances go over time, they accumulate things. And that's part of what's happening, is that it's now being simplified. So once you do that, once you simplify the number of zones, the next step is that you have to then translate what the old zones were to the new zones. That's been sort of done through a matrix that sort of says your zoning category used to be called an orange and now it's called a tangerine, or something similar. And that has been done. It's almost formulaic. So what the bill does very simply says that for this countywide translation, using a matrix, it's not going to be deemed an application, so it's not going to trigger that it doesn't necessarily trigger that application requirement. And the problem with which really makes sense, because it is fundamentally a legislative decision as opposed to a more administrative or site specific decision. I hope that got to your question, Delegate Weigel, because it is something that the Planning Commission has passed on, which is why we're supporting the bill.
So the comment was made about the delegation vote. What was the vote on the Prince George's Council for this and for this change?
I don't know 100%. There may have been one vote, I think, one or two, but it was certainly a majority of the vote. The council is certainly supporting it, which is why Mr. Turner was actually at the hearing, I believe.
All right, thank you.
Delegate Terraza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so Mr. Gardner, so you're talking about, I understand what you guys have done, all this work that you guys have done in terms of like redefining all the zones. And, I really appreciate all the work that's been done on that, because we've gone through comprehensive zoning in Howard County, and I was very involved in that. But you're talking about just sort of I forget the term, but like a parallel zoning change. But I guess my concern here is the upzoning piece of it. I mean, was there thought given to not allowing upzoning in this? I mean, I guess my problem is this sort of weaving of this completely. And I wonder if there is thought given to either continuing the affidavits or not allowing for the upzoning as part of this.
Well,
I think that's more the concern. Obviously, there's not as much of a concern of conflicts if there's not upzoning going on.
well, I think when the term upzoning is used, it's kind of an overbroad term because what you're really probably talking about is the intensity or the density changes that.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm talking about the increase in value.
Well, what I can tell you is that what's being proposed, the way that the process is working is that there's a matrix created that really is trying to do the best from a planning perspective, the best mapping translation of what the current density and it's not dealing with values, but it's dealing with zoning issues, density, intensity, setbacks. And it's saying that in the old zone, it used to be this. And when you go into the matrix and you've sort of formulated under the new zoning ordinance that's been adopted, this is the correct zone to apply to that property. And it's doing it for every property in the entire county all at once because it's trying to implement, it's trying to take the old map and create a new map that simply translates the old zones to the other. So the reason I'm Delegate Terraza, and I understood you, I heard your questions during the hearing, and I'm not trying to make it more complicated. What I'm trying to say is that it's the matrix function that was actually adopted as part of the process to do the translation. So there isn't really any intentional upzoning. It's really trying to make everything apples to apples.
So there's no application, I hate to use that term. There's no developer requests, whatever you might want to call them, for their map to be a particular, what's mapped on their property to be something in particular?
I don't think that there should be any applications for anyone to be accepted. I think that that's going to be driven by the implementing statute that's adopted at the local code. But my understanding is that there wouldn't be any applications. And so that there shouldn't be applications, which is why I was actually confused about using the word in the bill to one of the sort of the words that I technically quibble with is the idea of that this is actually altering anything. I don't think that the current code actually requires these to be treated as applications when somebody comes up to the rostrum and testifies.
And I'd like to, and I think that Councilmember Turner, in fact, made that point in the hearing that this is like a belt and suspenders in a way, motion to put this bill in, but there isn't. It's not clear that it's absolutely necessary, but they're doing it to try to make sure that everything's out in the open and that it's clear to everybody what's going on. So thanks for that, Adrian.
And just to follow up on that point, the action, this is not done in any other jurisdiction.
Right.
And it wouldn't be, because it doesn't make sense
Madam Chair,
to
may I ask
treat
a question?
this kind of
Yes.
legislative action. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Delegate Love.
Thank you. So, hi, Adrian.
Hi,
You actually just answered one of my two questions. One of them was, is this done in any other jurisdiction? And as I hear, no. And my second question is, if I'm understanding correctly, the whole intent of the application and all of that is to ensure that developers don't influence council members or those who are making decisions, don't influence them through their donations to make a favorable zoning decision. So that's the intent behind the statute. But that there's a matrix that determines the outcome. Did I get that correctly?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there, Delegate Love. Did you understand, Adrian, or?
I could not. Could somebody repeat the question?
Yeah, Delegate Love, we couldn't hear.
Sorry, I'm sorry, yes. So the legislative is to ensure that do not influence decision makers to roll decisions but in discretionary decision making will all be done by makers.
I heard the word discretionary decision making, and the point, and I didn't hear the full question, but the point that I was making before is that the discretion, generally speaking, this is a legislative type of decision, and you read court decisions, and it always talks about it being quasi-legislative because that's what zoning, from an administrative standpoint, can be. But the discretion in this situation is extraordinarily limited. And the reason it's been limited is because of that matrix that I talked about, where you literally had professional planners saying, and consultants, which is that is basically taking the general plan, the new general plan that was adopted, which in other jurisdictions of Maryland is called the comprehensive plan, but in Prince George's and Montgomery, it's called the general plan. And the planners have sort of taken that through all of the community input and come up with these new zoning designations, these new zoning names. And the next step of that is to take the old map with the old names and turn it into the new map with the new names. And that is done through this matrix mechanism, which is adopted as a proposed legislation for the map from the Planning Commission, gets approved from the Planning Commission, and submitted to the council as recommendations for the council's action. And it's done, which is why this bill is so narrow. It's county-wide, and there is very, very cabined level of discretion. Is it, did you get the formula wrong, for example?
Okay. So we have a motion favorable on the table. Is there a second? I'll second it. Second. All those in favor of the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Oh.
Delegate Clark. Delegate Weibel. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say the part of this that gives me heartburn is there's a reason why that ordinance is there to start with. And whether it's in their ethics code or what, there's a reason that it's there. And for us to vote to sunset it and bring it back, I'm just not comfortable with that.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Clark. Delegate Stewart?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You cut out. I thought you were done. Keep going.
No, all I was going to say is I understand it's a local bill, but I have to vote my conscience, and obviously local preference went out of this session early. So
I don't know. We've been passing lots of funding bills that are all about
but
including one from Calvert County, I think.
Yeah, but self-president, the way that you govern your county was ignored from the locals there. I mean, to make an ethical change in another county, come on, I understand, and I think the world of Marvin, and I would normally vote the way that he would want me to, but I just can't do it on this one. I just think that we're just letting the dog out of the fence.
Understood. Delegate Stewart?
Yeah, just to explain my vote, I actually agree with Delegate Clark largely. I think this makes me uncomfortable too. There's something icky inherently about sort of forgiving an ethical violation, even if it's arguably wasn't an ethical violation in the beginning. But at the same time, I think out of deference for both the county's process, which I understand has been rigorous and thorough, and more importantly, out of deference to the local Prince George's County delegation, I'm sort of reluctantly casting a green vote because I understand that it was a unanimous local vote. And even if I was a member, if I lived, 10 miles east or whatever, and was a member of the Prince George's delegation, maybe I would have behaved differently. But I'm going to stick with the county.
Thanks, Delegate Stewart. Delegate Terraza?
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to explain my vote. I'm extremely uncomfortable with this. I don't think this is a particularly, I agree with Delegate Clark. I'm extremely uncomfortable with this. I wish the Prince George's County delegation had done something different with this. I do think, like, I've looked a lot at these types of ethics laws. I've looked a lot at comprehensive zoning. I think the way their law is written is actually somewhat unworkable. And I wish they would look at it in sort of the opposite way in terms of having developers who contribute money not be able to apply for for change. And
Right.
also the way it's done in Howard County is that the affidavit has to be filed by the developer. So every time you apply for something, or not apply, but put in a request, you actually have to say who you've contributed to. And I think that makes it a lot more workable. I do think
That's
this is a
interesting.
reasonably unworkable piece of rule that they have, but I'm very uncomfortable with this, but I'm very reluctantly voting green because of, I think the delegation, this is the way the delegation chose to handle it, and I'm reluctantly voting green.
I think that, great points by everybody, and that's an interesting idea. Delegate Terraza, maybe Delegate Holmes and Delegate Barron, can think about that, but I appreciate that. We have one more.
Madam Chair,
Sorry,
I
Delegate
just
Love.
wanted to
Sorry.
say, thank you. I just wanted to say ditto to Delegate Stewart and Delegate Rosen.
Yep. Agreed.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Delegate Holmes. Okay, 1293. We have another local bill. HB 1293 is from our newest member, Delegate Ampry. This is a bill that would create the West North Ave Development Authority. There are several amendments to make it conform with the Senate version and to take the Department of Commerce out of the bill. Move the amendments.
Second.
All those in favor, yes.
I have a question. There are two different amendments, and they both seem to say the same thing. So I'm
Yeah,
confused.
they say the same thing. Yes, it's the same. I don't know why I was saying, yes, you're right. There's just one. Both of the reprints we sent say the same thing. We just switched by accident.
Okay. I second the motion on the amendments, both of them.
Thank you. All those in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Those amended,
No.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Was there a Delegate Ampry? Would you like to say something?
Oh, no, Delegate Holmes move the bill as amended.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Congratulations.
Good job, Delegate Ampry.
All right.
Fought like a
Great.
tiger.
Explain my
Thank you
vote.
very much.
Explain my
Great
vote.
to-
There's a big sponsor problem.
It was a
Yeah,
hard
to
battle.
explain my vote, yeah.
Hard battle. I appreciate it. It was looking like slim chances there, but I appreciate you all's efforts.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your participation and your thoughtfulness and everybody's comments. Some of these are tough issues, and I think we're trying to do the best we can and talk with our colleagues about what they want. And I just appreciate your attention and work this session so far. I don't know when our subcommittee will meet again, but I will be in touch. So have a great day.